Three lines from the bottom, which we started yesterday already. A long discussion explaining the principle that the Nivroim are created as a result of the union between Chochmah and Bina, Ayin Beis. But this union is what's called a union Ruchni, and a union Ruchni does not create a real Mahus. It's only a Ha'orah. And the Nivroim, there seems to be that they have a real presence, a real Metzius. Explain that in fact, in truth, they're only Ha'orah. And the principle of Ha'orah we already discussed many times from the perspective of Nivroim, of the creatures. If we were to apply that definition of Ha'orah, it appears, it seems like it's a real presence, but really it is not. And the reason it appears that it's a real presence, as we have discussed, because they actually represent something real. Mm-hmm. Every nivra, as I'm saying, has a shoresh l'mayla, and this is what gives it its presence. But then, where do we see that it's only a ha'orah? That should the shoresh l'mayla appear, so to speak, and be revealed in full glory, not with a filter, as we say, then they would completely dissipate from their Metzius. The Nivroim would completely dissipate their Metzius. As we have illustrated from many examples explaining this principle. Therefore, they're only Ha'orah, and ultimately, as he says, it's not the Guv Ha'orah, but Ha'orah de Ha'orah. That was the last thing that we, so to speak, read. To go into this distinction, Ha'orah and Ha'orah de Ha'orah, which is really a very important distinction. We'll talk about it in brief. Ha'orah is a reflection of what it is reflecting. In other words, it is telling you that such a thing exists. Like we said, light. I don't want to go into this whole discussion. There is such thing as light. That's all the light that we are experiencing here, not the essential element of light. Because darkness remains darkness. But it tells us there is such a thing. And in this there are all kinds of different levels. And it goes ad infinitum. To get a little bit of a handle, we explained that what is Chochmah? What is the essence of Chochmah? Chochmah is not what you know. The principle of Chochmah is, and this is why Chochmah provides the ability to relate to everything, is that Chochmah reveals and gives a sense that there is such a thing as a truth. Since there is such a thing as a truth, therefore when you encounter something, you say, oh, I don't know what this is, but I know where it's coming from. There is a source where it's coming from. Now, there is such a thing as a truth. There's a much higher perception than this is understandable, ultimately. It could be understood. It's knowable, which is a much lower level than there is such thing as a truth. This is the concept of ha'ora be'ha'ora de ha'ora. And obviously, as I said, it conjugates all the way down. Can we leave it at that for the moment? Okay, 3 lines from the bottom. And the fact that the Nivroim have this bechina, they have this aura of a mehuz davar, of a real presence. We explained yesterday, we already started this yesterday. What does that mean, mehuz davar? The light comes and it illuminates it, and darkness dissipates in the presence of light. It dissipates without any resistance. Yeah, it's darkness. And when light comes, darkness is pushed away, it dissipates in the presence of light, and it dissipates without any resistance whatsoever. Which attests to the fact that darkness is not a real mahus. There is no real presence in darkness. It's the absence of light. And this is what darkness is. You don't have to push it away. This in the physical arena doesn't seem to be making a very important message statement, but this reflects itself also in ruchnius. That all thoughts, all negativity that does not relate, does not accept godly truth, is really a darkness without a substance. Now, the Rebbe explains in Tanya this principle, and he says that when the Meraglim came back from their spying, and they came back all distraught, and they came back and says, "There's no way we can go up there, and this is an unconquerable land." And Moshe Rabbeinu came back to them and said, "All right, you don't want to go? You're staying here." You're staying here. And they realized what they said, what they did. And instantaneously they turned around and said, we're going. What happened all of a sudden? That the whole darkness, the whole fear had no substance. And when you kind of show its negativity, show its insignificance, it falls apart without resistance. This is when we say something that has no presence. But the Nivroim do represent, they are b'chinas mehuz davar. There is a mehuz davar. There is a certain real presence. And if chas v'sholom, if something attacks them, there's a resistance, a very strong resistance. They're not there present only because there's no opposition, therefore I'm present. They're b'chinas mehuz davar. But we say that they're not, they're only haor. So this seems to be sort of contradicting the principle that we said that it's a mehuz davar. So the explanation is Zehorak This is only Mashe nitfosim b'mtzius yesh v'hargoshos. It is only that they are nitfos, they are grasped in a mitzius yesh, in a sense of yesh, of a presence, b'hargoshoson, in their sense. Like we explained yesterday, that the Torah permits us to take an animal and shecht it for food. It's an amazing thing. But this is a living entity. And it's a mehuz dava b'haraya. If you want to shecht it, it resists. It resists. Which means that there is a real presence. So the Rebbe explains that this real presence is not a real presence in the true sense of the word. Nitfos memtzius yesh b'hargoshoson. In their sense, in their own sense of themselves, they are mitzius yesh. Not that they truly represent a mitzius yesh, a true presence. Few more words, lines perhaps. Avol etzem mehusom, but their essential presence. What did they stand for? Hu rag haora levad, is merely haora, lo inya v'dover atzmi. Not any inyan or dover atzmi. Hard to translate these words precisely. Not a purpose, not a sense of atzmi, an essential and a personal message. Dover atzmi means that it would be self-substantiating, which means, for example, if we were to expand on the mashal we had before, the animal resists being shechted because it doesn't want to be shechted, not because it must not be shechted. There is a dover atzmi. There is a real. It opposes something real. It's in its hergish. It's its choice not to be shechted. But not that you're violating something of real substance. Like we started yesterday on this issue. In this arena, the contrast between human being and animal, even though it's lost on many people, but it's paramount. Like I told you the story yesterday, and just want to briefly repeat it, that this man was at war, and it was hand-to-hand battle, and he was being stabbed, and as he's being stabbed, he screamed out, "Russia, I have a wife and children at home." In other words, what is the significance of his demise? His immediate sense, oh, I don't want to be killed? No, that's the animal. The human being sense that his presence is very, very real. How do you destroy such a world? That was his sense. That's a real presence. It's a godly presence. The animal is mitzius yesh b'hargoshoson. He also resists. He also runs away, but it's a totally different phenomenon. This is why the Torah says the animals are your prey. Human beings shouldn't torture, shouldn't cause them any pain, but that's it. He's your food. Human being is in a different realm completely. אבל עצם husam, but then not over b'fnei atzma, there is ha'ora, a reflection of life, not the real thing. Let me discuss this for a moment. Life is clearly what we say an elusive thing. Life is impossible to understand. It's beyond seichel. There's no way to define life in seichel. We cannot define life in seichel, but we can identify life. Not define what makes it be. Identify what are its ingredients, what are its parameters. So we explained over the years that neshama means breathing. And how do we breathe? There are two distinct methods, means by which we live, which both are imperative. One is food and water intake, and the other is breathing. You all know that breathing, this is the primary state of life. Without breathing, there is no life at all. And the neshama is actually called neshama because of breathing. You don't call it neshama achila, Michael. It's not Michael dependent. It's not representative of food. It's representative of breathing. The food aspect is to maintain the body, that the body should be able to, should have, because the body constantly burns up, so to speak, its presence. You have to replenish it. That's not neshama. That's not giving life. That's giving physical presence, physical health. Doctor? Neshama, the experience of life, is in breathing. This is why one can be without food for quite some time. I mean, there's a limit, but quite some time. But without breathing, we call it instantaneous. It's no life. We explained what is the process of breathing. So one can argue that breathing is the same as food. Just as food, you take food, whatever the minerals that you take in and digest them. Breathing is also, you take in oxygen. But that is not the true representation of breathing. This is not the experience of breathing. How do we in fact breathe? As we explained many times, there is an enormous atmosphere of air around us. And it's going up about half a mile. It's a huge atmosphere of air. And this air creates pressure because the mass of the air creates pressure. And this pressure of air will find its way into every opening and every crack and crevice. Therefore, when we breathe out and our lungs are empty, there is no resistance to the atmospheric air, it automatically flows into our lungs. It's the air pressure that brings the air into us, into our lungs, not our taking it in. It's contrary to the intuitive appearance that we take in air, we don't. We breathe out, and that's the pressure on the lungs that breathes out in pure air. Automatically, the pure air comes in. What's so significant about that? If we should have to take air in, we would not have the sensation of life. What's in this? And I'll come very brief. Life is not an isolated presence. Not this thing lives, this thing lives, this thing lives. Life is an overall presence of life, and that presence of life finds its way into this entity, into this entity, this entity. Like we said many times. Send the human being up in a capsule into space. Provide him with all his necessities for 150 years. With air, with oxygen, with everything else. Could he possibly live? Is there a sense of life in that? There is none. You can take in food. The body can exist on its own. The body doesn't have to come in contact with anything else. Life exists only if it relates to the truth of life, to the overall reality of life. The truth of an neshama, this is even on a physical level, that everything, this is what the miracle of creation, that everything, the way it's in Mila, is reflected here in Mata, so that we can understand and relate to it the way it is in truth. We live only because there is life all over us. This is what makes us feel comfortable breathing and going on without any concern. Because there's life all over us. The neshama lives because it senses the godly presence of life. And when it's deprived of that sense, it is the biggest pain, because it cannot find itself. Therefore, they are ha'ora levad lo yiniv dover atzmo. They represent the life represents the fact that there is life all over, not its own presence. There is not an independent sense of life. The sense of a loss, chas v'sholom, of demise, of passing away, is not the loss of my presence. It is the loss, like I said before, I have a wife and children at home. That was their overall reality. This is what I'm going to be missing. This is what the reality is. It's not my presence. So behargoshosan they are mitzias, and this is why they appear to have the sense of mahus dover, because in their hergish they are mitzias, but really yatzim mahusim is only a ha'or. And what is the ha'or of? A ha'or of the overall reality of presence, of existence. Not a dover yatzim. It's not a standalone thing that even if it were left alone, it would recreate itself. It would not. It recreates itself only in the image of what the reality, the broader reality, provides for it. V'zehu, and this is what is meant when we said She'einam bebechinas mehus u'metzias dover be'emes. They're not in the state of mehus u'metzias dover be'emes. What's mean be'emes? Behargoshoson, in appearance they are metzias dover. But be'emes, on the truth level, truth means hainu she'enun ina atzmi, that they're not in atzmi. A truth means something that has its own presence, and ina atzmi is self-sustaining. Is be'emes. They're not in metzias dover. Be'emes. She'enun in atzmi ki im ha'or levad. They're only a reflection of the true presence. They're saying, there is such thing as a true presence. Every creature attests to the fact that there is a creator. This is primarily what it stands for. Now, this is even on the higher level, so at the human level. What is the principle of human life? What is the true presence of human life? That he can represent his creator. He doesn't have a presence of his own. This is what gives him a true presence. It gives him a true life, value. All right, this is it. This evening, we get together again.
Thank you.
Call to Ayin.